Hello, welcome to the Magical Cottage. Today I'm going to show you how you can make your very own magical moon wreath. Very similar to this one that I posted on my WordPress blog at www.themagicalcottage.com. So let's go on over to the magical workroom and get started. Hi, thanks for joining me. So let's get started. I'm going to aim this down here at the table so you can see what's going on. And I got to remember that this picture is reversed, so we got to keep our left and right straight. All right, I have a Grapevine Wreath here, and in the blog that I wrote, the blog post I wrote on creating a magical wreath, I used the grapevine garland. So that's like a long string of grapevine that of course has been dried and prepared so that you can use it as a garland, and it is kind of in a spiral so that it naturally makes a circle and you can cut it fairly easily. But I decided this time I was going to use a grapevine wreath because I mentioned that you could use one of those in the blog post that I wrote. So what I did was I got a grapevine wreath and I took some garden shears. Okay, I don't think that regular scissors are gonna be able to cut through some of these twigs, some of these vines on here. So remember when you're cutting through the wreath that you want to take out a smaller section. You can always cut more if you want your opening to be wider, but you can't put it back once you've cut it. So the other thing I want to point out about cutting it is that you're going to be cutting it so that it tapers this way. Okay, don't cut going that way. You want it to taper inside the wreath on either side like that. So I cut through this. These thicker ones are kind of hard to get through. That's why you really need some garden shears. Mine aren't very sharp, so of course it was a lot more difficult. But get you some nice sharp garden shears and they'll be able to cut through that grapevine. The thing I like about this grapevine is it's got these little fun twirly random twigs sticking out here and there, and I tend to like more natural kind of things. Now you can dress up this wreath to be as glitzy and blingy as you want. You can add to it, you can make it drip with all kinds of sparkly things. If you want to do one for fairy magic, or if you really work with the fairies, you might want to use more sparkly materials to make it, but you would start with a grapevine wreath. And if you grow grapes and you got access to vines like that, you know, be creative and create your own materials to work with. Before we get started, I want to talk about what you can use to decorate with. I've got some dried flowers, some feathers, and most important is this wonderful crystal. Now you can buy these at a lot of craft stores now, and they've got some really nice ones. This is probably the most expensive item that you'll purchase. I think they run around $12 to $15 in a lot of craft stores. So that's going to be the most expensive item that you buy. Everything else here is pretty economical. And then you'll need some of this cord. I do not recommend using leather. I wouldn't anyway because I'm vegan and I don't use animal products, but this is some kind of polyester cord that you would find in the jewelry making department, and so this is not going to stretch out. If you use leather cord, it could eventually stretch out and everything might start sagging. So even the imitation leather, I wouldn't use on this project. All right. Also, I want to show you that I am drying some of my own herbs and flowers. And I just picked these yesterday. You have options to use all kinds of materials. So these are yarrow flowers. I got some lavender and some artemisian, some white sage. All of these I grew myself in my garden. And so these are going to dry. They're not ready to be used in any kind of project yet. But then they will get stiffer. And when you hang them to dry, you want to hang them upside down. I've got this fun little coat hanger that I'm hanging them on, and that will help the materials to dry out sufficiently, and also they'll be in a nice position for using them. So this will be straight, similar to when you're making a smudge stick. You want to make sure you hang everything upside down so all the leaves and things like that are hanging this in a downward position and hold their shape. So we'll see what happens with this. I may make another wreath with this, and that'll be really magical. Okay. So I went ahead and cut out this section on the wreath, and I've kind of got it to where I like how it looks. You can always go back and taper it a little bit more if you feel like it needs it. And just remember too that this is kind of a fantasy creation, so it can take any shape that you want it to. All right, so if yours doesn't turn out exactly like mine, don't feel bad and appreciate it for what it is. All right, I'm going to start at the top of the wreath, and I'm going to leave a tail here for my crystal when I tie it on. I'll tie that on after I'm done with the cord. And the cord is for if you want to do the moon catcher design in here, which is kind of cool. I recommend it, and I think that it would hold your moon wreath in shape if you were to do that. So I'm going to tie a knot right here. Make sure it's nice and snug. All right. Snug is good in this project. Now, this should be plenty in one package to do a wreath, and you'll probably have some left over. Okay, so I'm going to start winding it. I want to gather it all up so it doesn't get too crazy and get all twisted. And I'm going to go around, just wind around the wreath. Now the little twiggy things are trying to catch me. Okay. And you want to space the cord about this far apart each time it goes around. Okay. So you're leaving maybe, what, 3 inches here between the cord when you see it next time it's passing around. You want to try to get it fairly even. But remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. Don't beat yourself up. I'm trying to avoid breaking my little twiggy curly things there because I love those. And around and around. Now I'm getting it. I'm getting going. Got my rhythm going here. Above all, when you're crafting something, it should be enjoyable, okay? You shouldn't be getting all frustrated and mad and all that. You want it to be fun, because that's what creativity is all about. All right, now I came to the end here, and I want to make sure this is nice and snug. So I'm going to wind it around one more time and pull it tight. And the rest of this I'm going to be using for making the Dreamcatcher part. And I don't like to have knots showing in the front, so I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to try to anchor it here. Let's try to pick up one of these things, one of these cords, and pass it under. This will really do a number on your manicure too, probably, so be forewarned. It's also not a very good project to do when a kitty cat is around, and my cat may show up any minute to try and help out with this. She always shows up when I'm trying to sew, so maybe she'll take a nap. Let's see. Okay. Got a knot. Pull it through, pull it through. There's probably a neater way I could have done that. I probably could have wrapped it around something to keep it nice and neat. Alright, so it's nice and anchored right there. Now I'm going to start with the Dreamcatcher part, and I'm going to go from here. Let me hold it up so you can see it. I'm going to go from here over to probably the cord, the part of the cord that is closest to the center. All right, that's going to be my first step in creating the Dreamcatcher part of it. And I am not an expert on making Dreamcatchers, okay? I kind of like to think of it as like a spider web. I'm weaving a web. Now I'm going to take the end. I think that would probably be the easiest thing to do. Take the end of the cord. Where'd you go? Okay, sorry. You'll probably be doing this too, so it'll make you feel better. Okay. Back to the end of the cord. All right. Now I'm going to pass it through here. And this is why you wanted this to be nice and snug, because you want it to hold these cords that are going to be pulling against it. Okay, so we got that one. Now I want to go over to probably this cord and pull the remaining cord through like that. Okay. Yeah, that wasn't snug enough. I want to make sure it's nice and snug, so I've got this one going that way, this one going this way first, and this one going that way. Now I'm going to go back over here. And really, any kind of a pattern that you want to weave is fine. That's kind of what I do. I kind of wing it. And you can go online and get on YouTube and see people actually making Dreamcatchers and make one following their directions if you want. But you're basically just picking up a loop in the cord and pulling it another way. Okay, so now I think I'll go over to this one. Pass it underneath that stationary cord. It's like I got a little knot going there. So yeah, I do want to get that knot out of there. There we go. Probably what I should have done was wound this around something like a stick so that it would have been kind of like a needle that I was threading, you know. Oh, it almost looks like we got half of a pentagram there. That's kind of nice. All right, let's see. Am I done? Do I want to do any more? What I could do, I could kind of go through here and try to wrap around that. But I kind of like that shape. Keep weaving until you get just the right shape, and probably your intuition is going to be talking to you. Now, I don't like how it pulls down here, so I'm gonna wrap this. And you can see that it helps the wreath to keep from sagging when you add the cord, the Dreamcatcher element. As I said, if you are really good at making dream catchers, then you're probably going to do a really fantastic design in here. I need to practice the dream catchers more. But I still like it, the way it's turning out. I really like that star effect. I'm going to come around. I'm going to tie a knot right here. And since I don't want any knots and loose threads showing on the front of my wreath, I think it's time to cut this thing. So that's what I'm going to do. Helps to have sharp scissors too. You can tell I use my tools a lot. Okay, and then I'll come through and I'll try and tie my knot here just to anchor everything nicely. Double knot. Now I want everything to look nice and finished, so I'm going to cut off this loose end here. And here is another key ingredient, Tacky Glue. You can use any kind of glue that you prefer, except for any kind that expands, such as Gorilla Glue. Don't use that. See how much I have left over? I could have probably done a lot more complicated design, but on my knots, I like to put a little bit of glue there to hold them in place. Any kind of craft glue will work. And then I'll just, this will dry clear. Make sure it's a glue that dries clear. I don't recommend using what do you call them, the crazy glue stuff. Yeah, don't use that, because if you get that on stuff, you're going to be in trouble. It really does hold. Okay, you'll end up with a mess. Now, some people might like to use a glue gun, and if you're good with a glue gun, go for it. I end up burning myself half the time. So, and I think they're kind of messy, but anyway, there you go. Now I'm going to attach my crystal to this. I left this extra long so I would have plenty of twine or cord to attach it with. Now these crystals come with a nice metal loop, but they sure do have that stuck on there. Whew. Okay, try this. Oops, there goes. I got a little bit of wire on there that I'm going to remove. And as I said, I'm seeing more and more of these in the craft stores. So, and they got them in all kinds of colors. I like the plain crystal ones. I don't really care for the dyed ones, but you know, it's up to you. I'm not criticizing, but if you want a more colorful one, then go ahead. So I'm going to tie this on. And you want to look at how far down it's going to hang. So let's see. Pull it down just a little bit more. Okay, so probably right about there. Let's see if I can put this flat so you can see how far down it hangs. Right about to the middle of the wreath. Now I'm going to tie a more secure knot. Actually, you know what? I think I want to tie this so that the end of the cord is at the back. Is that right? Yeah, so I want to get this as smooth as possible, so I'm going to cut off the end here. Yes, unlike me, use sharp scissors that will actually cut. All right. Now I want to take my glue once again and put a dot of that glue in there, and you can actually smooth it out a little bit better if you put the glue on there. So here I am with my tacky glue. I'm going to work that in. And remember, it will dry clear, so just get it looking as neat as you possibly can. Give this a little tug, and you got your crystal tied on. All right. And hang it up so you can see how it's hanging, how this is hanging there. All right, now I'm ready to put on my moss. And this stuff you can get, it actually comes in all kinds of colors and textures. You can see this looks like the moss has actually some rather large threads to it. They're larger in thickness. And then in this package, you can see there's all different colors and textures. This one's very soft. And there's the brown sticks. And this one is a green, but it's also smaller threads and very soft. All right, so what I like to do is I like to plan it out first. Decide where I'm going to put my moss. So I'm going to take a big clump of it and just lay it on there. Get it kind of planned out before I actually glue it on so it's permanent. I like to leave the ends here kind of plain and not put any moss on it, because it gives that more of a tapered look to where the crescent moon really looks. You know, it kind of comes to points here. But I have seen where people covered the entire crescent with moss, so, you know, decide what looks good to you. Now this one is interesting because it has almost like a backing on it. So that would give you a lot of nice surface to glue down, but you might want to cut it into sections. And I'm really liking this stuff, this soft stuff, and I think I'll use some of the pink too. Right. Here's more green. Kind of looks like a mossy woodland kind of a plant, which seems very witchy to me. Get some more. Oops, we lost it. There it goes. Get some more going this way. But just sort of plan it out first. Plan your strategy for how you want to glue it on. And maybe I'll put a few dots of pink here and there. I guess that's magenta, right? Magenta's different. Now we're going to have some flowers and stuff over here, so if you want this to show, you might want to be sure to bring it down this way more. And you can... So I'm going to work with this for a minute, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I kind of got it the way I want it now. And nothing has been glued down yet. It's just planning it. And what I did in the meantime is I took some more of the larger moss and I added more here underneath the little moss. Sorry about that.
Call from 13235.
Okay, I should have unplugged that phone. All right, so I'm going to take this off and leave it there on the side. And so this is the little mini moss that I had. Now you may just be working with this larger moss. Maybe you only have one kind. That's fine. I think that's what I did on the original wreath. And I'm going to take my Tacky Glue, my craft glue, and I'm going to dot it on here all along where I want to put the moss. I'm probably going to get this on the tablecloth, so it'd probably be a good idea to put down something to work on, some kind of a tablecloth or plastic or a work surface like that. So this is washable. I can wash it. Okay, so I'm going to take this back over here and arrange my moss on top of the Tacky Glue. And get that to stick. Looks like I need some more right here. I'm going to leave the ends showing. I want to see that grapevine. All right, now you can see the white glue, but it will dry clear. And make sure you buy the kind that will dry clear. Okay, and then I want to go back here and put my other moss on here. Put some dots of glue. Okay, and so I'm going to work on this, and I'll be right back. Okay, so you can see that I glued down my first layer of moss, and then I took my Tacky Glue and put some dots along here and glued down another layer. Remember, if you don't have more than one kind of moss, it's perfectly okay. It'll turn out just fine. So don't worry about making it look exactly like mine. All right, you're going to want to let this dry In fact, I would suggest just walking away and letting it dry, and you can come back and shape it with your hands like that, and push things around a little bit, work with it, put your energy into it. And let's see, I like these little things, so I want to try and coax those out so we can see those as well. There. All right, but I'm going to go ahead and show you how I put some flowers in. This is called Baby's Breath, and I have to be honest with you, I did not grow this, but this is very easy to come by. I went over to the supermarket, I went to their floral department, and they have this in big bunches, and you can just buy it. It's one of the cheapest flowers you can buy. And this is probably not organic. Someday I may want to try growing my own Baby's Breath, but this is really nice flower to use in dried arrangements. I suggest if you want to make more of these kinds of arrangements, wreaths and different things like that, to look into which flowers dry really well. Some flowers dry well and other ones don't, and you need to pick them at just the right time, so there's quite a lot involved in that. And so anyway, I got the Baby's Breath, and the status is this purple one. I did grow that, and it makes an excellent dried flower, so I keep this in the garden just because you can put that in a vase and it'll stay there forever, and it'll always look like this. It doesn't turn brown and wilt or anything like that. So anyway, and it has these nice strong stems too. That's another good thing about a dried flower, that if you want to use it for an arrangement, it needs to have a stem that isn't going to crumble on you. Now roses can be dried and used this way, but their stems are not that strong, so you may have to reinforce a rose if you want to make it into an arrangement. Okay, so I will take my Baby's Breath and start poking it in here. Just break it off. It's very easy to break it. Now, take a look here. And when I insert that in, it's going to kind of ruin the shape of the moon if I just put it in really haphazard. So I want the flowers to follow the shape of the moon, and you're going to try and stick them way down in there. You could put a little drop of glue on there before you put it in. You don't have to. Now I'll put one over here. And as with the moss, you don't need to cover the whole thing with flowers, because it is a grapevine wreath after all, and you want some of that to show. You want some of the moss to show, but most of all you want it to look like a crescent moon. Okay. Go down a little bit further with the Baby's Breath. And tuck it into that grapevine. I was at this craft store the other day, and I saw a little teeny tiny grapevine wreath. And I was thinking that would be really great for somebody that doesn't have a big space, like if you're in a cubicle and you like to have something kind of nice to hang on the wall. You do a teeny tiny one. Get a teeny tiny crystal or a little pendant or something like that. Speaking of pendants, on my blog post I tied a little dragonfly pendant here. I wired it on actually, and see, that's drying kind of nicely, and so I had that little dragonfly on there, so you could add a charm to it. I mean, be creative. That's the whole idea, all right, is to be creative. Make it your own. And having said that, support our local artists as well. You know, there's some wonderful, talented people out there on Etsy and other places, and if you can afford it, buy their products. Make enough of these wreaths and maybe in other projects, maybe you'll be on Etsy someday. So, if you aren't already. Okay, now I'm ready for the purple. If something doesn't fit, just pull it off. I think I'm gonna put the purple more in clumps. Maybe center it to the center of the wreath. And this is a lot, has to do with proportion. So you want to make sure your crystal is the right proportion to go with your wreath. Any kind of little charm that you decide to attach, don't make it a giant thing that's going to cover up the crystal. Everything's about proportion, and so that should be your focus. As well as, how do you feel about it? How are you feeling about this witchy wreath you're making? If you feel like you really got something that you love, then that's all that's important. Okay? I'm really liking this other moss that I found right now. I really love it. Okay, now maybe I'm going to put this, I'll put one more of these over here, like that. And I think I'm going to get one more of the purple status and put it in the middle here. Now you can just leave it as is. And so this is kind of hanging down here more. I'm going to work with it and get it so that it really looks like a crescent moon. Let me put the camera up a little bit higher so you can see it. And I'll be right back. Okay. So I've been working with this. I had one stubborn piece of baby's breath here. Gypsophila, I think is the Latin name for it. That was kind of sticking out to the side. So don't be afraid to break off the stems and make them shorter and stick them back in there and get them to fit. And then you can always go back and put little dots of glue and try to do a touch up in some way. You can add feathers if you like. I have a couple of peacock feathers here. Now if I put it going this way, you see how it's gonna go off in that direction. It might be better to put this peacock feather facing this way. Of course, I wonder which direction the other one faces. I got two of them here. Let's see. So there's one peacock feather. The eyes on the peacock feather. I would say they can be very protective. All watchful eye, watching over your space. But if you don't have peacock feathers, don't worry about it. Okay, so I got that one facing that way. And then this one, of course, is facing the same direction. It'd be okay to put two down here. Or I could go up here and do it like this. You know, work with it. Get it to work the way you want it to. Okay, that'd probably be okay. Yeah, because there's no eye on the back of the feather, so yeah, if you just want to add one peacock feather, you can. Could do like that. Now, see how you have to kind of experiment? Put it in there. Take a look. If you have some other kinds of feathers you might like to stick in there, feel free. I like mine to look kind of like woodsy and like out in a woodland forest somewhere. Okay, I got other feathers. Just work with that wreath and get it to look just the way you want it to. Okay, so I'm going to hang it on the wall and let you see how it looks when it's hanging up, and I'll be right back. Okay, so here's the final product. I'll probably go back and do more things to it. I'm kind of like that. I change things out. I might find a cooler feather and stick that in there. It's kind of an ongoing project with me. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Remember to click like down on the bottom where you're watching this video, and also remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel, The Magical Cottage, as well as my WordPress blog, www.themagicalcottage.com, and follow me on Instagram, where I am The Magical Cottage WP, and on Facebook, The Magical Cottage. So see you next time. Hope you enjoyed this witchy craft, and may all your days be magical.